January 5th, 1942. Two German officers stride through the stone corridors of Colditz Castle, the most escape-proof prison in the entire Third Reich. Guard dogs, searchlights, armed sentries posted on every parapet. A full battalion standing watch, one soldier for every two prisoners. Goering himself declared this fortress unbreakable. But something about these two officers is off. Their buttons, crude lead casts, poured from stolen plumbing over candle flames. The holster, sliced from linoleum floor tile. The belt, painted cardboard. One careful glance destroys everything. And right now, a German sergeant sits 10 feet ahead under electric light. One of these men is British Lieutenant Harry Neve. 6 months earlier, he attempted this identical escape. The scenery paint on his cap glowed bright green beneath the searchlights. The guards didn't fire. They laughed. Tonight, every single component has been rebuilt from nothing. But here's what nobody anticipates. The man the Third Reich locked behind these walls will one day walk into Nuremberg and compel those same commanders to read the charges against their own empire. What pushed him to attempt the same suicide mission a second time? What did that first catastrophic failure burn into his mind? May 1940, northern France. German panzer divisions have shattered the Allied lines and are surging toward the English Channel. In the port city of Calais, a skeleton rearguard of British troops claws to slow the advance, buying hours for the evacuation at Dunkirk, 26 miles northeast. Lieutenant Harry Neve, 24 years old, fresh off a law degree at Oxford, commands a patchwork troop from the 1st Searchlight Regiment, Royal Artillery. Men he himself described as an ill-assorted, randomly equipped unit, separated from their original positions and armed with whatever they could scratch. He is not a career soldier. He is a lawyer with a rifle, ordered to hold a port city against tanks. Their mission is not victory. Their mission is to make the Germans bleed for every block, every alley, every bridge leading to the harbor, so 300,000 men can board boats at Dunkirk. Nobody in Calais expects to survive. They are purchasing time with their bodies, so the British Army lives to fight again. If Calais falls too fast, Dunkirk collapses. Neve understands this. Every soldier standing beside him understands this. They are fighting to make their deaths count. Artillery shells crack against the medieval walls of the old town. Tracer rounds carve red lines through the air. Smoke stains the sky a filthy orange above the port. Streets choked with abandoned vehicles, shattered glass, and men who stopped breathing hours ago. Neve leads his unit across an exposed square toward the docks. A shell detonates nearby. White-hot shrapnel tears through his right thigh. He drops into burning rubble, drags himself vertical, keeps moving on one functioning leg. His orders are plain. Hold the line, whatever the cost. Around him, men go down and stay down. The Germans do not slow. Every minute Neve's rearguard survives is another minute for the boats at Dunkirk. Every man here has done the arithmetic. On May 23, 1940, a German officer discovers Neve crawling through wreckage, uniform torn to rags, legs drenched in blood. The battle for Calais is finished. Neve is dragged upright. He is 24 years old, wounded, and now a prisoner of war. From this moment forward, he has one single objective: reverse that status. Transport trucks haul him east into Germany. He passes through Auflag 9A/H near Spangenberg Castle, where he spends months studying fences and memorizing sentry rotations. February 1941. Transfer to Stalag 20A near Thorn in occupied Western Poland. At every camp, Neve walks the perimeter, cataloging weaknesses. Captivity is a sentence he will not serve. April 1941. He and a fellow officer named Norman Forbes slip out of Thorn under darkness, heading east towards Soviet-controlled territory. They push through moonless Polish forests for days, sleeping in ditches, navigating by memory and stolen compass. Then, near a rail junction at Elk, dawn catches them in open ground. Nowhere to run, no ditch deep enough, no tree line close enough. A Gestapo car skids to a halt on the road ahead. Two officers step out, rifles leveled. Neve raises his hands. He has marched for days through frozen woodland, slept in roadside ditches, survived on almost nothing. And it dies here. A country lane, 30 seconds of failing light. Days of effort dissolved in a heartbeat. That second capture cements his fate. The Germans classify Neve as a persistent escaper, an ostracizer, and send him to the one facility designed for men exactly like him. In May 1941, his boots strike the cobblestones of Colditz Castle's inner courtyard. The cliff plunges 75 meters to the river. Sentries snap salutes. Prisoners watch from behind barred glass. The walls run 2 meters thick. Every prior escape attempt from this fortress has ended in failure. Colditz has housed French generals, Polish colonels, British commando officers, men with every motive and every capability to run. Not one has reached home. The system is convinced it has him sealed away permanently. But how do you contain a man who reads every locked door as a riddle, every failed breakout as data? What happens when the Reich's most dangerous escape artists occupy the same building and begin pooling knowledge? Inside Colditz, existence contracts to stone corridors, barred windows, and that endless plunge to the river. Winter air slices through the cells like a razor. Searchlights sweep the darkness every few seconds, dragging white bands across the ceiling. Guard dogs pull at chains in the corner yards. More than 500 officers, British, French, Polish, Dutch, Belgian, share tight sleeping quarters on rigid bunks under relentless surveillance. A full German battalion mans the castle, roughly one soldier for every 2 prisoners. No work detail, no labor assignment, no structure to anchor the hours. Just stone, 4 head counts daily, and the awareness that the cliff beyond the glass drops 75 meters to frozen water. The monotony is engineered. Boredom, cold, overcrowding. The Germans deploy these as skillfully as barbed wire, but they have committed a catastrophic error. By concentrating every escape artist in a single fortress, they have assembled an academy of defiance. French officers who tunneled out of Bavarian camps exchange intelligence with Polish soldiers who forged papers in Silesia. Dutch prisoners run German accent drills inside their cells. An escape committee, a dozen resolute faces huddled beneath blankets by candlelight, convenes after every roll call. They coordinate plans so one team's attempt does not expose another's operation. They appoint escape officers who track every active scheme, distribute scarce materials like dye and wire, and enforce a queue to prevent the castle from erupting in simultaneous chaos. Neve, intense and silent, sits among them. Colditz is meant to break these men. Instead, it is welding them into a collective intelligence network more advanced than any individual escape plan. Neve's own design crystallizes that summer. British prisoners stage theatrical performances in a small hall inside the castle. Concerts, plays, variety acts, while German officers watch from the front rows. Beneath the theater's wooden stage, Neve and his team have mapped a route. A trapdoor drops to a storeroom that connects through a ceiling passage above the guardhouse to the German side of the fortress. The plan exploits a psychological blind spot. Sentries scan for prisoners scaling walls, severing wire, burrowing beneath floors. Nobody watches for officers walking calmly through the German quarters. On the night of August 28, 1941, Neve dons his disguise, a Polish greatcoat dyed field gray, a black officer's cap coated in scenery paint, a cardboard belt painted silver, and strides toward the guardhouse with 2 companions. A spotlight flares. A guard screams, "Halt!" In the white torrent of the searchlight, the paint on Neve's cap fluoresces a vivid, unmistakable green. Not muted, not subtle. Bright, radioactive green, visible from 30 meters. The guards freeze. Then laughter erupts. Paul PM, the German security officer, saunters over, examines the glowing cap with theatrical delight, and delivers his verdict. Corporal Neve is to be dispatched to the Russian front. 6 months of planning, every stolen material, every rehearsed step, trade by a tin of cheap paint nobody thought to test under a searchlight. Mocking salutes trail Neve down the corridor to solitary confinement. In that cell, silence crushes inward from every surface. The humiliation bites harder than any formal punishment. The concept was solid. Walk out dressed as a German officer. Exploit the one direction sentries never think to watch. But the execution was amateur hour. Cheap paint that dissolved under bright light, untested materials, a timeline so rushed it left zero room for failure. Neve sits on the narrow bunk, rotating the handcuffs around his wrists, and arrives at a cold conclusion. The strategy lives. Every physical element gets rebuilt from nothing, stress-tested under conditions matching the real escape, and perfected before he stakes his life on that same corridor again. If Colditz was engineered to crush Defiance, it chose the wrong prisoner. He has no materials, no outside contact, no promise the next attempt won't collapse the same way. But perfecting a disguise capable of fooling trained soldiers under electric light, that's one problem. Finding a partner who speaks flawless German without a whisper of British accent is a different problem entirely. Where inside this stone cage does Neve locate someone skilled enough and mad enough to walk that same corridor beside him? And when he does, what will it cost them both to get it right this time? Winter, 1941. Months drag past like iron chains. Neve watches everything. During meals, he maps guard rotations. At roll calls, he times each sentry's patrol down to the second. He memorizes faces, rank insignia, personal habits. Which guard lights a cigarette at the same corner every night? Which sergeant hovers near the gate when rain falls? Which shift change drifts 3 minutes late on Sundays? He keeps nothing written down. One scrap of paper discovered during a search destroys everything. Every observation feeds directly into memory, cataloged, cross-referenced against every other observation. A bored guard, a lazy search, a predictable shift change. Each gap becomes a weapon cached for later use. His partner surfaces from the Dutch contingent, Lieutenant Anthony Luden, calm, sharp-eyed, an officer who speaks German without a single foreign trace. Not textbook German, not careful German, native German. The kind that never pauses before a word, never softens a consonant, never carries the faint melody of another language beneath it. Neve has spent weeks testing candidates, holding quiet conversations in yard corners, listening for the hesitation that would get them both killed at the first checkpoint. Luden has none. Neve brings the stubborn audacity. Luden brings linguistic precision. Together, they form a unit designed to exploit the single flaw Neve identified back in August. The assumption that no prisoner would walk out through the German side of the castle dressed as one of their own. They destroy every remnant of the first attempt. Nothing gets improvised. A Dutch overcoat is stripped, re-dyed, tailored to the exact shade of Wehrmacht Feldgrau. Scraps of lead plumbing are pried from castle walls, melted over smuggled candle stubs, poured into hand-carved button molds. Neve blows on each cooling button until it matches the weight and sheen of genuine German brass. Linoleum ripped from dormitory floors is boiled, shaped, rubbed until it passes for a leather holster. A belt is constructed from cardboard, painted and buffed until it gleams like regulation issue. Every component gets tested by candlelight, then tested again under a hoarded electric torch. They labor through blind hours past dawn, reconstructing the same disguise that betrayed them. Except this time, each piece survives a second glance. If this story of nerve and craftsmanship has earned your attention, consider subscribing. Most viewers watching right now haven't yet, and one tap helps these stories find more people. The escape route undergoes its own refinement. Beneath the theater stage, they've cut a trap door leading into a storeroom. From that storeroom, a corridor runs directly above the German guardhouse and opens onto the officers' courtyard on the Nazi side of the castle. The plan's audacity is its own camouflage. Sentries scan for prisoners climbing walls, cutting wire, tunneling beneath floors. Nobody watches for 2 German officers strolling through the front gate. Beyond the castle walls, a Dutch prisoner, captured near the Swiss border town of Singen, has shared critical intelligence, Gestapo checkpoint patterns, crossing points. This man walked the exact roads Neve and Lutine will use. He knows which platforms run permanent identity checks and which only bother on market days. He knows the 2-kilometer stretch of border wire near Singen, where the patrol gap yawns widest. He was captured, but on a different road, making a different error. Neve and Luton commit every detail to memory: train timetables, border patrol intervals, the names of towns where document inspections bite hardest. The date locks in: January 5th, 1942. That evening, British prisoners mount a theatrical performance. German officers occupy the front rows. A single, drowsy guard watches the gate. Backstage, 4 men, Neve and Luton, plus 1 British and 1 Dutch officer, crouch in darkness above the stage. Uniforms pressed sharp, forged documents tucked into breast pockets, lead buttons catching the barest sliver of light. The curtain drops on the final act. Applause rolls through the hall. Somewhere below, a guard yawns. 5 months of obsessive preparation now balance on the next 90 seconds. 5 months of cataloging guard rotations, testing button molds by candlelight, drilling German phrases until they surface without conscious effort. One flawed button ends everything. One guard who lingers a half-second too long. One card player stepping into the corridor for a cigarette at precisely the wrong moment. Because there is one variable beyond Neve's control. The trapdoor passes directly above a room where German soldiers play cards deep into the night. If even one of them drifts into that hallway, 4 men in counterfeit uniforms stand exposed where no prisoner belongs. And if the disguise holds, what waits on the other side of the wire? Applause reverberates through the theater as the final curtain falls. German officers in the front rows offer polite claps. The last stagehands exit the stage. In the blackness above, 4 men hover over the trapdoor. Neve pulls the rope. The hatch swings wide. They drop into the storeroom below. A plank groans under impact. But the sound vanishes beneath applause still trembling through the floorboards. Light bleeds from the hallway beyond. They flatten against the wall. Listen. Nothing. They push a metal door open and step into the corridor above the guardhouse. The German side of Colditz Castle, territory where no prisoner has any right to breathe. Neve smooths his Feldgrau coat. Lutine adjusts an officer's cap. They exchange the parole word in whispered German, a phrase overheard from a guard 3 weeks prior. Below them, a sergeant hunches over reports at his desk. 2 officers descend the staircase. The sergeant glances up, nods without interest, returns to his paperwork. They cross to a small door, step into the outer courtyard. Cold air floods their lungs. A single sentry stands at ease beneath the stone archway separating castle from world. Neve's pulse slams against his throat. They carry themselves like officers returning from late duty, unhurried, shoulders squared, boots striking flagstones in confident rhythm. The sentry's gaze tracks them. He hesitates. 1 second. 2. Then they pass beneath the arch and through the gate, moving in the one direction no escaper in Colditz history has ever attempted. Straight out the front door of the German command block. Bitter wind strikes their faces. They drop into the dry moat, scramble across, scale the outer wall into Colditz Park. Moonlit trees devour them. They tear off German caps and coats, stuff them beneath undergrowth, revealing civilian clothes layered underneath. Worn jackets, shabby hats. The disguise of Westphalian factory workers. Luton grins in the dark. They have walked out of the most secure prison in the Third Reich in under 5 minutes. They split to halve the risk. Neve boards a freight train at Litzmannstadt before dawn. A German newspaper lies open across his lap. Camouflage. A regional train carries him south. Every station platform is a dice roll, a suspicious conductor, an alert policeman, a checkpoint he never anticipated. He changes trains for Singen, the last German town before the Swiss frontier. Outside Singen, he reconnects with Lutine near a forest road. 2 Hitler Youth boys, rifles slung across their shoulders, challenge every man on the path. They inform Neve and Lutine they are hunting 2 escaped prisoners of war reported in the district. Neve presents his forged papers with deliberately trembling hands. A jittery factory hand from Cologne, nothing else.